The air on Station Kepler-7 crackles with tension as the Galactic Trade Summit reaches its boiling point. For years, humanity has bled its brilliance into the galaxy, healing the sick, feeding the starving, and engineering solutions where others faltered. But now, the Council, greedy for more, wants to limit humanity's reach, stifling the very force that has kept the galaxy moving. Captain Elena Rodriguez stands before the Council, her heart heavy but resolute, as the vote is cast. Resource Allocation Decree 2847, a decree that will chain humanity to 12 star systems, leaving countless worlds to suffer without their help. With a single silent nod, the humans rise and leave. The doors of the Council chamber swing shut with a finality that echoes across the galaxy. The Council laughs, confident in their control, sure that humanity will be too dependent to walk away forever. But as the years pass, their pride turns to ash. Medical supplies stop, crops wither, cities collapse. A deadly plague sweeps across the galaxy, and the only cure is locked behind a closed door. The Council may have thought humanity's withdrawal was a bluff, but soon they'll realize the true cost of their arrogance is more than they could have ever imagined. The galaxy will now learn that humanity, once a servant, has become the ruler of its own destiny, and no one can stop the inevitable rise of Earth's true power. This is the story of humans left the talks. Then the Galactic Council begged. The breaking point. The massive viewing chamber of Station Kepler-7 stretched across 3 kilometers of reinforced transparent aluminum, offering a breathtaking view of the Andromeda Gateway. Thousands of ships from dozens of species moved through the cosmic traffic lanes like a carefully choreographed dance. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at the observation deck, watching the organized chaos while her mind processed the events about to unfold. Elena had served as Earth's primary trade representative for 7 years. She understood the delicate balance of galactic politics better than most humans. Today, however, that balance was about to shatter completely. The Grand Assembly Hall buzzed with conversations in 17 different languages. Translation matrices hummed softly, converting complex alien thoughts into understandable concepts. Elena walked toward the human delegation's seats, noting how they were positioned at the far edge of the circular chamber. Even after 3 decades of membership, humans remained outsiders in the Galactic Trade Council. Admiral Marcus Chen straightened his uniform as Elena approached. The weathered soldier had seen combat across 4 star systems, but political battles made him more nervous than enemy fire. "Any word from Earth Command?" he asked quietly. "They're standing by our decision," Elena replied. "Whatever happens today, we have full authority to act in humanity's best interests." Dr. Sarah Kim looked up from her data tablet, her expression troubled. The brilliant scientist had spent the last 5 years developing breakthrough technologies that had revolutionized galactic society. Her medical nanobots had saved over 40 million lives across different species. Her agricultural improvements had ended famine on 15 worlds. Yet today, none of that seemed to matter. The chamber fell silent as Overseer Thex-9 activated the central speaking platform. The mechanical being's chrome body reflected the ambient lighting as servo motors adjusted its posture for maximum authority. The mechanical hegemony had founded the Trade Council 400 years ago, and they never let anyone forget it. "Distinguished delegates," Thex-9's voice resonated through built-in speakers. "We gather today to address the critical issue of resource allocation and territorial expansion rights within our galactic community." Elena's jaw tightened. She knew what was coming. For months, rumors had circulated about Decree 2847. The founding species had grown uncomfortable with humanity's rapid expansion and technological advancement. What had started as admiration had transformed into fear and resentment. High Chancellor Vorth rose from the aquatic delegation's specialized seating area. The amphibious leader's gill slits fluttered with agitation as he spoke through his breathing apparatus. The Aquatic Federation supports the proposed limitations. Newer species must understand that expansion requires wisdom and restraint. Ambassador Quillen's crystalline form chimed in harmonic agreement. The Crystal Collective's representative created musical notes that the translation matrix converted into words. Harmony requires balance. Rapid growth creates discord in the Galactic Symphony. Elena stood, her movement drawing attention from across the chamber. Before any votes are cast, I believe this council should review exactly what humanity has contributed to galactic society. Thex 9's optical sensors focused on her with mechanical precision. Captain Rodriguez, your species' contributions are not in question. This discussion concerns territorial limitations for the greater good. No, Elena replied firmly. This discussion concerns whether this council operates on principles of fairness or fear. She activated her delegation's presentation system. The chamber's walls filled with data that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. Medical statistics showing how human nanobots had eliminated 7 different plagues that had devastated alien populations. Agricultural reports detailing how human-developed crops had ended food shortages across multiple star systems. Engineering schematics revealing how human innovations had solved critical infrastructure problems for 8 different species. In 7 years, Elena continued, humanity has solved more galactic crises than any 3 founding species combined. We've shared our technology freely, asked for nothing beyond fair treatment, and respected every territorial agreement. Admiral Chen stood beside her. Our shipyards have produced medical supply vessels for species who couldn't afford them. Our engineers have rebuilt cities destroyed by natural disasters on worlds we've never even visited. Our scientists have developed atmospheric processors that have made dead worlds habitable again. Dr. Kim added her voice to the presentation. The Zephyrian respiratory plague that threatened to wipe out an entire species last year? Human medical technology stopped it. The crystal resonance failure that nearly destroyed the collective's homeworld? Human engineering fixed it. The agricultural blight affecting 15 aquatic Federation worlds? Human botanists developed resistant crops in 3 months. The chamber buzzed with uncomfortable conversations. Several delegates from smaller species nodded in acknowledgement, but the founding members maintained their stern expressions. Overseer Thex 9 interrupted the discussion. These contributions, while appreciated, do not change the fundamental issue. Resource allocation must be controlled to prevent galactic instability. Elena's eyes flashed with anger. You mean controlled to ensure the founding species maintain their advantages while newer members remain dependent? That interpretation is incorrect, High Chancellor Vorth interjected. This decree ensures stability through proven leadership. Whose stability? Admiral Chen demanded. Humanity has established colonies on 47 worlds, all of them previously uninhabited or abandoned. We've created infrastructure that benefits every species in this council. We've followed every regulation, respected every treaty, and contributed more to galactic welfare than species who've been here for centuries. Ambassador Quillen's harmonic voice created discordant notes of dismissal. Enthusiasm without wisdom leads to chaos. Newer species require guidance from those with experience. Dr. Kim's voice carried a sharp edge of frustration. Experience? The mechanical hegemony nearly caused a galactic war 200 years ago over mining rights. The Aquatic Federation strip-mined 4 star systems to extinction before developing conservation policies. The Crystal Collective's territorial expansion displaced 6 younger species who are still seeking new homeworlds. Those were learning experiences, Thex 9 responded coldly. Mistakes that inform current wisdom. Elena looked around the chamber at faces that had once welcomed human innovation, but now showed only suspicion and fear. And what have humans done that requires such restriction? What mistakes have we made that justify limiting our growth to 12 star systems, while founding species continue expanding without limits? The silence stretched uncomfortably. No delegate could cite a single instance of human aggression, territorial violation, or resource abuse. The restriction was based purely on potential threat, rather than actual wrongdoing. The vote will proceed, Overseer Thex 9 announced. All in favor of Resource Allocation Decree 2847? Elena watched in disbelief as 37 of the 44 council species voted in favor of the restrictions. Only 5 smaller species voted against, while 2 abstained. The founding species had used their political influence to convince others that limiting humanity was necessary for galactic stability. Admiral Chen's hand moved instinctively toward his sidearm before he caught himself. Years of military discipline warred with righteous anger. Dr. Kim stared at her data tablet, seeing decades of humanitarian work dismissed as irrelevant. Elena stood slowly, her movement commanding attention throughout the chamber. When she spoke, her voice carried across the hall with perfect clarity. For 7 years, humanity has participated in this council with respect and good faith. We believed that contribution and character mattered more than age or political connections. Today, we learned that we were wrong. She gathered her data tablets and sealed them in her diplomatic case. Effective immediately, the United Earth Federation withdraws from the Galactic Trade Council and all associated institutions. Gasps echoed through the chamber. No species had ever voluntarily left the council. The political and economic implications were staggering. "Captain Rodriguez," High Chancellor Vorth called out, "surely you cannot be serious. Where will humanity go without the council's guidance and protection?" Elena looked back at the aquatic leader with cold determination. "We'll find our own way, Chancellor, as we always have." Admiral Chen and Dr. Kim followed her toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly silent chamber. Other delegates watched in shock as the human delegation walked away from centuries of galactic tradition. As they reached the chamber doors, Elena turned for one final statement. "When you remember this day, remember that you had the chance to treat humanity as partners. You chose instead to treat us as threats. That choice will have consequences." The doors closed behind them with finality. In the assembly hall, delegates sat in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. Overseer Thex 9's mechanical mind calculated potential outcomes, but even advanced artificial intelligence couldn't predict the true scope of change about to sweep across the galaxy. Within hours, human representatives began withdrawing from every galactic institution. Trade agreements were terminated. Scientific collaboration ended. Medical supply programs stopped. Engineering support contracts were canceled. The vast network of human assistance that had quietly supported galactic civilization for 7 years simply vanished. High Chancellor Vorth convened an emergency session that evening. "This is a temporary tantrum," he assured the gathered delegates. "When their food replicators break down and their ships need repairs, they'll come crawling back begging for readmission." Ambassador Quillen's harmonics carried confident notes. "Isolation teaches humility. They will learn their place in the galactic order." But Dr. Sarah Kim's final words to the Council's scientific committee haunted some delegates through the night. "You've just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. We offered partnership, and you demanded submission. Now you'll discover what the galaxy looks like without human innovation." 3 days later, every human vessel had departed Council space. The species that had contributed more to galactic welfare than any other simply vanished into the cosmic dark, leaving behind empty research stations, abandoned diplomatic quarters, and the growing realization that perhaps the Council had misjudged their newest members. The founding species celebrated their victory over human ambition. They had maintained the established order and put the newcomers in their place. Soon, they assured themselves, normal galactic business would resume. They had no idea that normal no longer existed. The silent years, 18 months after the human withdrawal, Station Kepler 7 looked very different. The once bustling hub of galactic commerce now operated at 60% capacity. Empty docking bays stretched like missing teeth in the station's ring structure. The medical bay that had once boasted human-designed nanobotic treatment systems now relied on older, less effective technologies. Dr. Zenith Kala, a Rigelian physician, stared at the diagnostic readout with growing frustration. The patient before her suffered from Vorthon blood fever, a condition that had been easily treatable just 2 years ago. The human-developed nanobots could have cleared the infection in hours. Now, with only traditional treatments available, the patient faced weeks of painful recovery or possible death. "There has to be another way," she muttered. reviewing the medical databases for the 100th time. But every promising treatment led back to human research that was no longer accessible. The Galactic Medical Consortium had tried desperately to reverse engineer human nanobotic technology. Teams of the galaxy's brightest scientists had worked around the clock, but the quantum-level programming remained beyond their understanding. The humans hadn't just advanced medical technology, they had revolutionized it using principles that other species couldn't comprehend. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On Viridian Prime, agricultural specialist Gromax stared at failing crops that had once thrived using human-designed fertilization systems. The plants were reverting to their original, less productive states, without the genetic modifications that humans had freely shared. The yields are down 40%, Gromax reported to the Planetary Council. Our population cannot survive on pre-enhancement crop production. Council leader Vex clicked her mandibles in frustration. Contact the Aquatic Federation. Surely they have alternative agricultural solutions. But the Aquatic Federation faced their own crisis. 15 of their worlds depended on crops that required human-developed soil processors. Without maintenance and replacement parts, the processors were failing one by one. High Chancellor Vorth found himself in the humiliating position of requesting emergency food shipments from species he had once considered inferior. The Crystal Collective faced perhaps the worst crisis of all. The harmonic resonance failure that had threatened their homeworld 18 months ago was returning. The human engineering solutions had provided a temporary fix, but the underlying instability required ongoing maintenance that only human engineers understood. Ambassador Quillen's usually melodious tones had become discordant with worry. The resonance cascade will resume within 6 months, she reported to the emergency assembly. Our world's crystalline structure cannot survive without the stabilization protocols. Overseer Thex-9 processed the mounting reports with mechanical efficiency, but even artificial intelligence could recognize a pattern of systemic failure. Human withdrawal has created cascade effects throughout galactic infrastructure, the machine calculated. Estimated timeline to critical system failures: 14 months. The founding species had expected human isolation to last weeks, perhaps months. They had prepared for economic pressure and diplomatic protests. They had not prepared for the complete absence of human innovation that had become essential to galactic civilization. Desperate attempts at contact began 6 months after the withdrawal. Council ships approached the boundaries of human space, only to find nothing. No response to communications. No acknowledgement of presence. Human colonies that had once welcomed visitors now remained silent behind energy barriers that Council sensors couldn't penetrate. Trade Captain Morix led the first official reconnaissance mission to humanity's original colonies. His ship, the Stellar Pioneer, had made this journey dozens of times when relations were normal. He expected to find struggling settlements ready to negotiate their return to the galactic community. Instead, he found impossibility. The human colony on Kepler 442b had been a small agricultural settlement of 50,000 people when he last visited. Now, massive cities stretched across entire continents. Energy signatures readings indicated population centers of millions. Orbital stations surrounded the planet like metallic jewelry, their purpose completely unknown. "How is this possible?" Morix whispered, staring at the sensor readings. "They've built more in 18 months than most species accomplish in decades." His communications officer tried every frequency, every protocol. The human settlements remained silent. Ships moved between the orbital stations and planetary surface, but they ignored the Stellar Pioneer completely. When Morix tried to approach closer, something extraordinary happened. His ship's engines simply stopped. Not damaged, not disabled. They just ceased to function. Emergency power remained active. Life support continued, but propulsion systems became inert. A message appeared on his main screen, delivered in perfect galactic standard. "Council vessel detected in human space. Your ship will be returned to neutral territory. Future incursions will not be tolerated." The Stellar Pioneer found itself gently pushed beyond human space boundaries by an invisible force. Engines resumed function the moment they crossed the border. Morix's engineering team could find no explanation for what had happened. His report sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Not only had humans survived isolation, they had somehow achieved technological capabilities that defied current understanding. Energy manipulation without visible sources. Population growth that suggested either massive immigration or breakthrough life extension. Construction capabilities that operated at previously impossible speeds. High Chancellor Vorth convened an emergency session 9 months after the withdrawal. The assembly hall looked noticeably different. Several species delegations had been reduced due to economic hardships. Empty seats marked the absence of 2 minor species whose worlds had become uninhabitable without human environmental support. "We face an unprecedented crisis," Vorth announced. "Critical systems are failing across member worlds. The humans' withdrawal has created infrastructure collapse that threatens galactic stability." Ambassador Quillen's harmonic voice carried undertones of desperation. "The Crystal Collective requires immediate assistance. Our homeworld will become uninhabitable within 3 months without the human stabilization systems." Overseer Thex 9 presented detailed calculations. Economic projections indicate complete civilization collapse within 18 months if current trends continue. Food production down 37%. Medical capabilities reduced by 51%. Infrastructure maintenance falling behind replacement rates. Dr. Zenith Kala rose from the medical consortium's section. "I've lost 12 patients this month to conditions that were easily treatable before human withdrawal. We're literally watching people die because our pride was more important than human partnership." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates blamed humans for abandoning their responsibilities. Others pointed out that the Council had driven humanity away through their own arrogance. A few suggested military action to force human cooperation. "Military action?" Admiral Rector of the Aquatic Federation scoffed. "We can't even get close to their territory. Our scout ships report defensive capabilities beyond anything in our databases." Trade Captain Morix was called to present his reconnaissance findings. The assembled delegates listened in growing amazement as he described human colonies that had transformed into technological marvels. Cities that seemed to defy gravity. Ships that moved through space using unknown propulsion methods. Energy shields that made their most advanced military technology look primitive. "They're not just surviving," Morix concluded. "They're thriving in ways that seem impossible." The real crisis hit when the Zephyrian flu returned. The same plague that had threatened multiple species 2 years ago began spreading again, but this time there was no human cure available. The nanobotic treatments had been destroyed when relations ended, and no other species could replicate them. Within weeks, 23 worlds reported outbreaks. Death tolls climbed into the millions. Panic spread faster than the disease as populations realized that help was not coming. Dr. Kayla watched the casualty reports with growing horror. This plague wiped out entire civilizations before humans developed the cure. Without their nanobots, we're looking at potential extinction-level casualties. The Council faced a choice that should have been simple, but had become impossible due to their own pride. They needed human help desperately, but they had spent months asserting that humans needed them. How could they admit that the opposite was true? High Chancellor Vorth made the first attempt at contact. A formal message was transmitted to human space. "The Galactic Council requests emergency medical assistance to address the current health crisis. Terms of cooperation are negotiable." The response came back within hours. Message received and deleted. The Galactic Council is not recognized as a legitimate authority by the United Earth Federation. Ambassador Quillen tried a different approach, appealing directly to human colonies that had once hosted Crystal Collective cultural exchanges. The message was more personal, acknowledging past mistakes and requesting compassion for suffering populations. Again, the response was swift and final. Cultural exchange programs were terminated due to Council actions. No current diplomatic relations exist. As the death toll mounted and more worlds faced system failures, the reality became undeniable. The galactic community had become dependent on human innovation and generosity. Without that support, their civilization was collapsing. The humans, meanwhile, had used their isolation to advance beyond anything previously thought possible. They weren't just surviving without galactic support. They were evolving into something entirely new. Overseer Thex 9 calculated the grim truth that no one wanted to acknowledge. Human technological advancement during isolation suggests capabilities that exceed current galactic understanding. They no longer need us. We, however, desperately need them. The age of human dependence on galactic civilization had ended. The age of galactic dependence on human innovation had begun. And the humans were not answering their calls. Part 3. The Reckoning. 3 years after the Great Withdrawal, the Galactic Council convened its most desperate session in 4 centuries of existence. The Grand Assembly Hall on Station Kepler 7 bore scars of systematic neglect. Lighting panels flickered with the instability of failing power systems. Empty seats marked the absence of species whose civilizations had collapsed without human support. The death toll had become unbearable. 12 worlds had been declared uninhabitable. 3 entire species faced extinction within the year. The galactic economy had contracted by 70%, and critical infrastructure continued failing faster than it could be repaired. High Chancellor Vorth looked haggard as he addressed the severely diminished assembly. His once proud amphibious form showed the stress of watching his civilization crumble. Fellow delegates, we face the final hour. If we cannot restore relations with humanity within 6 months, galactic society as we know it will cease to exist. The numbers were devastating. Ambassador Quillen's homeworld had suffered complete harmonic collapse. The Crystal Collective's billions of inhabitants lived in emergency shelters, while their crystalline cities slowly disintegrated. Only human engineering could have prevented the cascade failure that was destroying their civilization. My people are dying. Quillen's normally melodious voice had become harsh with desperation. Children born into collapsing crystal matrices, their life forces slowly draining as our world dies. We estimate 3 months before the last stable crystals fail. Dr. Zenith Kala presented the medical crisis statistics. The Zephyrian flu has now claimed 47 million lives across 39 worlds. Without human nanobotic treatment, the plague will continue spreading until it exhausts potential hosts. We're looking at casualty figures approaching genocide levels. Overseer Thex 9's mechanical voice carried an unusual emotional subroutine of regret. Analysis indicates that human withdrawal created a cascade failure throughout galactic civilization. We underestimated the degree to which our society had integrated human innovations. The bitter irony was not lost on anyone present. They had voted to restrict humanity out of fear that humans would become too powerful. Now they faced extinction because humans had become exactly that powerful and were no longer helping them. Captain Torres of the Independent Survey Corps requested permission to present his latest reconnaissance report. Unlike military scouts, independent surveyors had managed to observe human territory from a greater distance without triggering defensive responses. What I've documented defies comprehension, Torres began, activating a holographic display that showed the scope of human expansion. Human territory now encompasses 847 star systems, not colonies, fully developed worlds with populations in the billions. The assembly stared in shock at the display. In 3 years, humanity had expanded their territory by over 2,000%. More incredible, every world showed signs of complete terraforming and massive urban development. How is this possible? Demanded Admiral Rector. No species can develop that quickly. Torres highlighted specific systems in his report. Planets that were barren rock 3 years ago now support Earth-like atmospheres and complete ecosystems. Cities that span entire continents. Orbital installations that dwarf our largest space stations. He showed energy readings that made no sense according to current scientific understanding. Power generation at levels we've never seen. Ships moving through space using propulsion methods our physicists can't explain. Some vessels appear to travel faster than light without using jump gates. Dr. Kala studied the population estimates with growing amazement. These numbers suggest human lifespans have extended dramatically. Either that, or they've achieved reproduction rates that should be biologically impossible. There's more, Torres continued grimly. Human space is completely sealed. Energy barriers surround their entire territory. No ship can enter without permission. No communications penetrate the barriers. They've created perfect isolation. The scope of human achievement became clear as Torres presented more data. Manufacturing capabilities that could construct planetary installations in weeks. Agricultural systems that could feed billions on worlds that had been sterile wasteland. Medical technology that had apparently conquered aging and death itself. They don't just survive without us, Torres concluded. They've transcended everything we thought possible. High Chancellor Vorth slumped in his specialized seating, the weight of realization crushing his spirit. We drove away the one species that could have lifted all of us to new heights of civilization. Ambassador Quillen created discordant harmonics of despair. We treated their gifts as threats, and their generosity as weakness. Now we face extinction, while they build paradise. The assembly fell into dejected silence, until Overseer Thex 9 spoke. There remains one option: direct appeal for humanitarian aid. They've ignored every previous contact attempt, Admiral Rector protested. Previous attempts maintained our political position, the mechanical being replied. We requested negotiation as equals. Now we must request aid as supplicants. The word hung in the air like a physical blow. The proud founding species of galactic civilization had been reduced to begging the newcomers they had dismissed and restricted. Dr. Kala stood slowly. I volunteer to lead the mission. As a medical professional, I can frame this as a humanitarian crisis rather than political negotiation. They might kill you, Admiral Rector warned. We don't know how they treat intruders now. My patients are dying every day, Kala replied. Death for trying is preferable to death from inaction. The mission launched a week later. Dr. Kala's medical vessel, the Mercy, approached the boundaries of human space, broadcasting humanitarian appeals on every known frequency. Unlike military scouts, her ship carried no weapons and transmitted detailed medical data about the ongoing plague crisis. For 3 days, they received no response. Then, something extraordinary happened. A human ship appeared beside them without any visible approach. One moment space was empty. The next moment, a vessel of impossible design floated peacefully alongside the Mercy. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, and energy patterns danced across its surface in mesmerizing displays. A communication channel opened, and a familiar voice filled the Mercy's bridge. Dr. Kala, this is Admiral Elena Rodriguez. We've been monitoring your distress calls. Kayla's breath caught. Elena Rodriguez had been Captain Rodriguez when she led the human delegation out of the council chambers 3 years ago. Now she commanded fleets that spanned hundreds of star systems. Admiral Rodriguez, Kala responded carefully. I come seeking medical assistance for the plague crisis. Millions are dying, and we lack the technology to stop it. We're aware of the situation, Elena replied. The question is, why we should help people who made it clear they didn't want our assistance. The words stung because they were completely justified. Because despite everything, you're still human, Kayla said finally. Your species has never abandoned others to suffering, even when those others treated you poorly. There was a long pause before Elena responded. Follow our ship. You're invited to discuss terms. The human vessel led them to a massive orbital station that materialized around them like a growing crystal. The Mercy was gently guided to a docking bay that sealed itself with technology beyond current galactic understanding. Elena Rodriguez met them personally, and the change in her was remarkable. She appeared younger, stronger, and carried herself with confidence that came from absolute authority. Behind her stood other familiar faces from the old human delegation, all showing similar transformations. Welcome to New Geneva Station, Elena said. Before we discuss aid, you need to understand what you're really asking for. She led them through corridors that seemed alive with flowing energy and responsive surfaces. The station wasn't just advanced, it was revolutionary, incorporating technologies that shouldn't have been possible. In 3 years, we've accomplished more than galactic civilization achieved in 3 centuries, Elena explained. We've solved the problems of aging, disease, resource scarcity, and space travel. We've created a society where every human can reach their full potential. They entered an observation deck that offered views of the transformed human territory. Hundreds of worlds glowed with the light of thriving civilizations. Ships moved in patterns that suggested traffic management on an unimaginable scale. This is what becomes possible when innovation isn't restricted by political fear, Elena continued. When cooperation replaces domination, when merit matters more than species origin. Dr. Kala stared at the display with awe and growing hope. You could save us all. We could, Elena agreed. But not under the old system. The Galactic Council that drove us away no longer exists as far as we're concerned. She outlined humanity's terms for rendering aid. Complete dissolution of the existing council structure. Establishment of a new galactic federation based on equality and merit, rather than political hierarchy. Shared governance with rotating leadership among all species. Most importantly, guaranteed rights for all civilizations to develop according to their potential without artificial restrictions. You're not asking to rejoin our system, Dr. Kala realized. You're offering to create something entirely new. The old system was built on fear and control, Elena replied. The new system will be built on cooperation and growth. The choice was simple. Accept humanity's vision of galactic government, or face extinction under the current system. Dr. Kala had the authority to speak for the medical consortium, but decisions of this magnitude required council approval. I need to present these terms to the Assembly, she said. Of course, Elena nodded. But understand this. We won't wait indefinitely. Every day of delay costs lives that could be saved. Dr. Kala returned to find the council assembly in chaos. Reports had arrived that human ships had appeared throughout the galaxy, not to attack, but to offer emergency aid to the most desperate worlds. Plague-stricken populations found nanobotic treatments appearing in their medical facilities. Failing agricultural worlds discovered their crops mysteriously restored to health. Collapsing infrastructure received anonymous repairs using impossible technologies. They're helping us, High Chancellor Vorth said in amazement, even before we've agreed to their terms. Ambassador Quillen's harmonics carried notes of wonder. Crystal matrix stabilizers are appearing across our homeworld. Our children are no longer dying. Overseer Thex 9 calculated the implications. Humanitarian aid without preconditions demonstrates intention to cooperate regardless of political outcomes. This suggests genuine desire for mutual benefit rather than dominance. The vote was unanimous. 37 species formally dissolved the Galactic Council and requested membership in the proposed Galactic Federation under human leadership. Elena Rodriguez returned to address the Assembly, but not as a supplicant seeking approval. She came as the first Director General of the Galactic Federation, offering partnership to species ready to embrace a better future. The age of restricted potential is over, she announced. Today begins the age of unlimited cooperation. 5 years later, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. Every world enjoyed prosperity that had been unimaginable under the old system. Diseases had been eliminated, aging conquered, and resource scarcity ended through human innovations shared freely with all species. The former council chambers on Station Kepler 7 had been converted into a museum commemorating the old galaxy's failures and the new Federation's promise. A plaque near the entrance bore a simple inscription: When cooperation replaces domination, all species rise together. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through force. They had won it through the simple act of proving that their way was better. The species that had once restricted human potential now thrived under human leadership, learning that true strength came not from controlling others, but from lifting them up. The galaxy would never again mistake human generosity for weakness or human innovation for threat. They had learned, through near extinction, that humanity's greatest power was not their technology or their determination. It was their refusal to abandon hope, even in those who had abandoned them.